whether or not student leadership really represent the interest of students. And I think it's such a big issue because they also think that student leaders are beholden to certain interests and they are not looking at the very reason why either student appoint them there or elect them there, particularly the university. You see all of that.
We cannot fully eradicate politics, from the SRC.
Partisan
politics from the SRC, because the SRC itself was formed on these bases.
So we need to rebrand and redefine leadership when it comes to the student level, because for me, it is a very good grounds to nurture future political leaders.
Welcome back to another very fascinating edition of the Youth Unplugged podcast. As always, brought to you by CDD-Ghana with support from IDRC. Today, the conversation is one that is really dear to me because of my own background, because of the time I spent in Legon doing a little bit of student politics. And there are so many people who have concerns about what student politics is becoming, whether it has become a miniature of national politics with all the vices that comes with national politics associated with that. In fact, a couple of days ago, I saw some appointment from one of the SRCs where they were appointing chiefs of staff, minister for this, minister for that. And it was a bit fascinating because we were not very much used to that idea of student politics and some of those portfolios. But also there are those who take the view that student politics is getting to the point where it is degenerating in terms of the outcome that it gets. And so really fascinating conversation with some brilliant minds. As always, this is CDD Youth Unplugged podcast. CDD itself doing this to get as many young people as possible to be involved in this democratic experiment. And they are getting support, of course, from IDRC. And today, I'm joined by some really interesting minds to come and do this with me. Henry and Samuel.
Right.
And they are, when it comes to student politics, they know what it is. They've seen it. And so they can give us some good perspectives. Let me start with you, Samuel. And as always, our views are ours. They do not necessarily reflect that of CDD. What are your views about student politics and where it is currently?
Well, I think whereas we are making progress in getting more and more people to be involved in student politics, the issue of partisanship has become a major issue. But I don't think that can be eradicated. And this is why. When you trace how SRC, first of all, existed, you notice that it was formed on the foundation of politics. Going forward, even the individuals who drafted the 1992 Constitution, most of them were student leaders, first before, right? For example, the University of Ghana, which used to be University of Gold Coast and formed in 1948, established in 1948. That same year was when SRC was established. Now, which constitution are we using now? 1992 Constitution.
Yeah.
So it means that even the SRC came before the 1992 Constitution. So the drafters, some way, somehow, modeled it after the SRC.
Okay.
Because the SRC was modeled after the British Westminster, system.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the argument is, how about nukes? Nukes came 11 years after SRC was formed, right? So why am I making these points? I'm making these points to answer your question, to say that, look, we cannot fully eradicate politics, from the SRC.
Partisan
politics from the SRC, because the SRC itself was formed on these bases. Notice how in 1949, the leader of CPP at the time, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, pulled out some SRC president from the University of Ghana to be a part of his campaign and his agenda.
Yeah.
And so if you ask me, that is what I would want to say.
Henry.
All right, thank you very much. So if you look at education in its entirety, you cannot separate it from politics. And mostly people tend to have sort of, argument about this whole thing. But the thing is that there are certain principles like democracy, which are integrated in the curriculum of our various educational institutions. And it is out of these topical issues that politics and democracy comes out of it. You understand? So you get to understand that there is something called election. In fact, the means of selecting leaders at the various level, even from the basic level, the class,
class rep,
Class rep, and
cupboard boy.
the cupboard boy. This is where, for me, I think that the politics in education system started from, and gradually as it gets into the tertiary level, that is where you see it's sort of mimicking the national sort of politics. And so for me, it has helped to, shape our educational institution. However, in recent times, you realize that there is too much sort of influence from the national, political terrain, and that is one or the other affecting the originality and the whole agenda about.
Because I remember when we used to pick cupboard boys. I don't know. You guys look like you went to all those bougie schools.
No, I didn't.
We had cupboard boys.
Right.
We had cupboard monitor.
Mm-hmm.
You had somebody that used to
the
clean
bell
blackboard cleaner, the bellboy, and those days they were posts.
Yeah, those were posts, and
they were highly respected.
Very respected. The bellboy in particular. That's the guy who holds the key to whether you are eating, and the bell will get rung immediately. And you have to rush. You have to rush back to classroom. And when we used to pick that, it wasn't strictly by election. But as you had to be in a good books of your mates, sort of, or at least in your class teacher,
to get them,
who perhaps make that appointment or come and ask, do you want Kukua Santo, do you want Akon, or do you want Henry as a class prefect and all of that? It's incredible. I think part of the challenges that people talk about now is whether or not student leadership really represent the interest of students. And I think it's such a big issue because they also think that student leaders are beholden to certain interests. And they are not looking at the very reason why either student appoint them there or elect them there, particularly the university. You see all of that. I don't know, Henry. Student politics and what it is becoming. Are these leaders representing the interests of the students? Those ones that put them there.
Okay, so I'll take this from two sides. The very first part being the fact that there are genuine student leaders who are deeply passionate about the cause of. Yes, I would say so. I've once been there before, and you could see that these are individuals that they are very passionate about the cause of student activism and the fight for the interests of students. However, there are those ones that it is out of their parochial interest and the interest of some other people that one or the other, quote and unquote, they are raised to come and occupy some positions. And we have seen them. You understand me? So yes, we have people who are passionate about the work and they are willing to go or travel to every tangent to ensure that the needs and the interests of students are served. And there are ones that for them, maybe their the godfather syndrome, which it is, becoming very prevalent in our students' politics now. Now, almost every student leader is sort of getting some form of, the fathership in terms of politics. And that is really, really affecting, student politics now. And the truth is that when you allow yourself to be fathered or to be given, and once you're able to get a father or a political godfather or something, you tend to pursue their interest. So you are instructed to do certain things, and whatever they want you to do is what you will do. So if the person is politically exposed, you need to follow suit and then, align with that color of, party. And for me, it is not really helping, because the moment you are pursuing someone's interest, it means that you are putting aside the will and the interest of the people who put you in that place. So yes, basically that is what I would say.
Well, to add to that, I have always questioned why things turn out to be that way, because when these individuals are campaigning, so much powerful messages, but when they get there, then the issues, tend to elude them. They seem not to find the solutions to the problems they were so much interested in solving. So I use myself as a case study. In my times as student of the University of Ghana, I went in for several elections, but I lost the SRC election.
I remember.
I lost the SRC election in a runoff. Actually, that's a conversation for another day. But then before going into those offices, I had a mind on my own, almost all of the positions, right? But what I did notice was that student elections on campus has become so much expensive.
Yeah.
That is what influences that particular interest. You might have an interest to pursue the interest of the students, but because you need money to run your elections, some individuals will come on board to support you and all of that. But once you get into the office, they will start pushing from behind. Oh, you're going to embark on this project. Can you give me the contract? You'll be printing books. Can you give me the contract? You'll be doing this. You'll be doing that. So those things, if you are not strong and you're not really committed to pursuing the interest of the student, you will buy into, those comments, because at the end of the day, this was the campaign.
With the cost of campaigning. Right. Yes. I mean, recently one of the episodes we talked about the cost of national election. It's $100 million and all of that.
Yeah.
And student politics, that in the old times, you just print some names on some A4 sheets and put them around. Now you have to be doing those vehicles with the LED screens.
I tell you.
Those are expensive.
And you see, I think that with the issue of monetizing elections on campus is one of the very things that is breeding corruption on our various university campuses. My brother, it would interest you to know that a random university student pursuing an interest in an election or maybe contesting for an SRC election, especially in some universities like the University of Ghana and the rest, would not spend less than about 100,000 in the whole electioneering process. And once you get to chance on a budget for an SRC election, and you might even think the person is contesting either for a member of parliament or a relevant national position, and it amazes you.
Yeah, not to cut you, but in my time running for SRC, our budget was over 200,000 Ghana cedis. And I'm not lying, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
UGSRC elections,
200,000
Ghana cedis, and that's because
more.
You see, when you take the students' population, the individuals going to cast the ballots, they are like 60,000. You notice how you go to some constituencies and the voters, the population is like 15,000, 20,000. Yeah. So it means that if we are to make it a constituency as Legon, they even outweigh some of the constituencies.
And you see, in that scenario, so let's take the scenario where he, in his bid to contest for an SRC election, is spending roughly 200,000. Now the question is, as a student on his own, where does he get his money from? So the issue about the student election and corruption has to do with some of these things, because if your budget is 200,000 or even more, it means that definitely you're going to need support. And as to so that's where you be getting, calls from people. I want to sponsor your campaign. I know somebody I can take you to. And once you get to these people's end, what are you going to? They will tell you. Nobody will just give you money for free. So then they will tell you what they want. And because you also need the money, then you would also, second to that. And then you come into office, instead of you to serve the interest of the student body, then you're rather serving the interest of other people, which is very, very, problematic. Yeah.
I mean, if you are taking 200,000 CDs from multiple sources, you're getting 50,000 CDs from somebody that prints books. And now they come and tell you that, listen, we need to add this to the price before you take it to General Assembly or the House and Parliament or whatever it is. And that is what comes in. So what can we do with this? I mean, because campaign has to be run, do we go back to running it in a very modest fashion? Unlike now, campaign on politics is becoming like national politics.
Yes.
So I think the only thing we are not doing on campus is we are not doing rallies.
Yeah.
But every now and then you go to the diaspora, you see,
in fact, the rallies people are doing. Let me just, in just this recent SRC election at the University of Ghana, you could see, people pulling out crowd with vehicles, Land Cruisers, with motorbikes.
Land Cruisers.
Yes. And you see, it creates some sort of competition. So somebody did this maybe with 20 cars. Somebody wants to do with 30. Somebody wants to add more, holding, microphones and loudspeakers. Yes. So in fact, you are even seeing the whole, sort of picture of the national politics being replicated in the student politics.
I mean, 2019, we're holding megaphones. Those small ones, walking about 6, 7, 8 people. And even that seemed like a gargantuan improvement of those that was proud to that.
Yeah.
So it's taking this new dramatic twist that involves a lot more resources to be injected to try and get some understanding. Really fascinating. And we're having a conversation about student politics and how it is mirroring the national political conversation, for good or for bad. All right, in terms of the money, in terms of where the allegiances are, which people are the student leaders serving. And this is obviously a very important conversation brought to you by CDD-Ghana with support from IDRC. What could have led to this? Because in time past, it wasn't like that. But obviously things have been growing now. But of course, we are now exposed to social media. We see the things in Kane University. Of course, talking about Land Cruiser, I've seen it in Kane University before. Land Cruiser with the guy out in the limelight.
You know,
really?
waving.
You know, so how did we get here? Is it that that's what students like, or makes the whole thing? I don't know.
Yeah. You see, the question about how it's really difficult to answer, because you see, when you go to junior high schools, don't we have SRCs, and we have student leadership there? But is it like that? No. Come to senior high school. I was head boys for my school, and the election was not like that. We just go to the rooms, campaign to the people, but you get to the SRC level at the university and it changes. Why? Because the political parties are taking over the student leadership on campuses. They're taking over. And so now the point then becomes that if a candidate is running for an election, right, the political parties, they look at talents, they look at the possibility of who is going to win the election, and also look at the actions of the candidates in past times. Have they in past times shown any interest or actions that show that probably they align with our ideologies? When that happens, then the party comes in. Notice how if a party comes in to sponsor one candidate, the other candidate will not sit aloof and say that I'm watching the other candidate to sponsor it.
That is very true. And you know, on top of that, remember that in our recent times, you know, political parties have established youth wings on our various campuses. So on the part of NDC, we have TEAM. On the part of
and then 93 later,
MPP, we have TESCON. I'm sure we have others as well. And you see, these people, you see, we cannot underestimate the influence of student politics also in national politics. Now, it has become very common that most student leaders, right after leaving the various universities, tend to even get the opportunity to enter into the national politics. And we can cite, you know, many examples. So on this, you know, basis, it has become very
blueprint.
Exactly for our political parties. You understand? So that is as to how we got there. These are some of the, you know, factors that necessitated to we get in there. And it is very, very serious. Now, you realize that some students also tend to realize that politicians of in recent times some of them are very rich, some have access, some have influence, and these are people that one way or the other they have some sort of relationship with. So in their quest to get there, they may want to involve in, you know, some stuff like as we are discussing, and then to be able to get there quickly. So now we even have MPs who are in their early 30s, right after finishing university, entering into the mainstream politics and all of that. So these are things that are motivating them to also get there. And in terms of the influence of student politics in national, now let's take a view of the University of Ghana, for instance. It is centered in the Ayawaso West constituency. And if you look at the report from this 2024 election, it turns out clearly how the deciding factor of that
was
election
on campus, University of
happened at the University of Ghana. In fact, if Honorable John Dubello, for instance, won all the polling stations on campus.
I think it was the first time that the NDC.
Yes, this is historic.
So I think I like that point, because then political parties are looking at student election, not just as student election, but as an avenue,
as an extension
of national election. So that if you control all the JCRs on campus and the SRC, perhaps you feel like when it's time for election and you go down there, grounds are much smoother because you have all the control. You have all
exactly. Let me give you a practical example. Somewhere in the course of 2020 to 2024, during Anado's last term in office, you could realize that several, you know, protests were made, demonstrations and all other things. They get the crowd from the various universities. And trust me, which people organizes these ones? The political parties reps. So if, for instance, it is MPP that is in power, they get to detain executives, they mobilize their people because they understand their voice. It will be very difficult for a politician, a national politician, to enter various campuses and instruct students to go on the streets. However, it will be also easy for a student leader who, you know, has that rapport relationship with the students to easily organize them and put them on the street. And it happened. The massive protests and the demonstrations that occurred on the street, they use the university students. So one or the other, you can see there is a high influence of the national politics on the student politics and vice versa. However, you could see that that of the national politics, in terms of its influence, overrides that. I mean, the extent to which student politics influence the national politics. Yeah.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I mean, really looking at it, it's not really good or bad, but I think it's about what ultimately happens at the end of the day. So that, let's say, even if you are looking at it from just political angle, the political parties' involvement is not necessarily bad because, I mean, one of the functions of political parties we learned in social studies is to recruit new leaders and all
new
of that.
leaders and all.
So
to
could just
train
have black
people.
men alive, all from University of Ghana, come out for Sami
Yeah.
Nku, all of them from the student political fold, and now they are in national politics.
Right.
Akufo-Addo, he said he used to be roommates with President Mills. I mean, so these people don't fall from the sky. They go through these universities, they get socialized, and they get acclimatized to the political terrain. So political party involvement or national politics having so much influence on student politics, so that campus politics is now like a microcosm of national politics, is not necessarily a bad thing. But for certain things. So how do you make it a net zero so that it's not bad, but even at least it's run well, so that the undue influence is not so bad?
I think it will be a very difficult endeavor. It will be a very, very difficult endeavor because, look, no matter which angle you take it from, at the end of the day, the person will not be working in the interest of the student. At the end of the day, it will be the interest of the political party. Do you understand? You made a point where you say that during elections on campus and all of that, they go through some of these people to get people on board, to galvanize support for them and all that. So personally, I think it will be very difficult. It will be very difficult for us to truly get the benefit of true student leadership until we do away with the politics. And I think the institutions, not really in the sense of failure, but we don't have so much activities coming on from the leadership of these institutions for student politics. If major things in student politics will happen, it's when these political parties, influence them. Why am I making this point? You go to university, you want to, be a student leader. What mechanisms are in place to train you? What mechanisms are in place to ensure that when you get that position, you will, what do you call it? You will lead with the interest of the student. You use your own ways, maneuver your own way, go and get your own political godfather. I've entered the university, I'll see that, this person is doing so well in politics. Boss, can you mentor me? The person has a political affiliation. Definitely, I'll be aligned to that political party. At the end of the day, I can't serve the interest of the student. You see, so I think that the problem really has got to be institutional. We need to have mechanisms in place where people who come to these institutions and have interest of being student leaders are taken through some channels, right? If it is an academy, leadership academy or whatsoever, so that at least it minimizes the political influence, so that even if the person is having a political party, he or she likes their ideologies, the person will balance that with the kind of leadership he or she is receiving from that academy. So I think we should also look at that angle.
Yeah. And then just to add that, I mean, I think there are various, when you go to various institutions, management tends to leave student leaders to do their own things. So he mentioned the issue of like mentorship training and all of that. So if I get my training, for instance, or my leadership training from a political party, then I'm likely to align with the interest and the ideologies of the party. Now, for instance, if that party does their own things in a certain way, then I'm likely to replicate what they do. So it's a very, very, topical issue that he's talking about. If there are programs like issue on integrity, issue of, responsible leadership are being engaged, that is on the part of students and management, I think it's going to help.
Yeah.
Somebody,
we are not even talking about programs, organizing programs to have speeches on, integrity and all of that. It should be a deliberate effort that it's an academy something every week or every month.
Yes.
They meet, you imbibe in them the values you want them to have.
You come to the University of Ghana in recent times, the only time you will see management coming in, to interfere in the affairs of student leadership or politics is
election
when
disputes.
Yes, there is an election dispute, the agenda, the petitions, then they'll be worried, the dean and all of that, which is, that time that student is even entering into the last phase of his education. I mean, how do you then control that person?
So I think the question is whether or not student leadership really, or student elections, are really grounds really well, because I mean you on campus you're about scheming, you're scheming,
Agenda.
a lot
Yeah.
of things that goes on that are just completely
Mm.
very bad. So these are not necessarily good things,
Mm.
but we learn it from the national politics. So there's real scheming ongoing. So there's some budget at GA. It's our agenda. Nobody's looking at what the broader student interest is.
Yeah.
There is this conversation here. There's election CI. Nobody's looking at it. Everybody's looking at it from a place that can benefit their side as against the other. So the democratic values that you would expect that student politics, student elections would imbibe is really not there.
Yes. The truth is that we cannot, wholly delete or do away with national politics with regards to its influence in the affairs of students' leadership. What we can do is to contain it and manage it. So, for instance, as my senior man was suggesting, maybe management getting involved in some training and all of that, that would help. Just so to, turn away the ideologies and mindset from what they're already exposed to. But if you say that you can't disallow, for instance, TIN and TESCON from in fact, some of the students even have the desire to go to their offices and bring them to the various campuses. So how then do you do away with such a situation? And you understand? And it's really affecting the quality of student leadership on our various institutions. Now, I mean, even though a lot of people are having much interest in pursuing student politics, some too have, resigned the decision to do so. Especially those who see the dirtiness of student politics.
To the point where I quite remember when I was on campus and running for SR. So you go to some rooms to campaign and people say, look at them, they are not coming to really do anything. They are just come to do MPP, NDC.
Please, can I
no matter how much well you sell your message, they see it as MPP, NDC. So in a way, it is even casting a shadow on student leadership itself. I don't want to term it as student politics because a lot goes into politics, I want to term it as student leadership.
One of the reasons why such instances happen? Some student politicians tend to pretend. So in their quest to ascend whichever office they are pursuing, they will dress very nice, be nice to people. Sometimes try to create that rapport with them. Now they get into office and you are even closer to the person. You need to book an appointment to visit the person's office. How is that possible?
Yeah. I mean, you talked about management and what they can do.
Yeah.
But they had also said that perhaps management is even part of the problem. Because part of the reason why we elect student leaders is to represent the interests of students against management. And students and management interests don't always coincide. Let's say there's an increase of fees, there's some change in policy.
Yeah.
And for instance, I have real problems with how student leadership is now in the University of Ghana, particularly, or other universities. I feel like it's so much beholden to management. Management controls students. You can do this, you can't do this, you can do that, you can't do that, all of that. So how do we balance that? So that student leaders, even though they are getting some education, some training from management, it will not be in such a way that they do not really represent the students' interest. And now they are not even beholden to political leadership, but they are beholden to management.
I get your point.
Yeah.
The point where I make that, I mean, management should get involved in set of academies and all of that. Now, the fear then becomes, what if at the end of the day, they would want to act in the interest of management because it was management that gave them that training?
Yeah.
I don't think that if the training is done really well, we won't get to that point. Right. You can mention those nuances and all of that, but those can be ironed out later, right? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you've been trained properly on how to articulate interests of students, part of it will tell you that no matter how the situation is, you'll be able to tell management straight in the face that this policy won't help students.
These are leaders who could stand on their grounds, no matter
that's the point.
Yeah.
A few years ago, you had that. I mean, when you read the literature about people like Kujita Blackwell,
how they were able to stand up to management,
Yes.
But now you don't usually
don't see that
because either they're afraid of management or I don't know how.
Is it because now we are young?
But those people
Not
too at
necessarily,
the same time because African parents are getting out of 24, 25, 26.
If you are a leader, be it a student leader or whichever leadership portfolio you hold, you should have your personal principles and some convictions. If you are disciplined and you have some, you are so much attached to your convictions, even, excuse me to say, even if it has to do with the vice chancellor, and you need to speak on behalf of the people who put you there in a way not to disrespect the person, but to convey an information or to defend the interests of students, then you must be able to do so. Then if you cannot do that, then you shouldn't be there in the first place. But the question is that how do we get such leaders to be able to go there and defend the interests of students despite being intimidated? In recent times, some student leaders, they fear that, they might not graduate. They are being threatened.
Yeah.
If you do this and you don't listen to us, you will not graduate.
Yeah, but
your
but
certificate will not come to you.
You go to university because you want to go and get a degree.
Yeah.
Everything else is
A
either
secondary,
extracurricular or co-curricular, right? So if you came here, your parents brought you here to come and study your political science, whatever, and get a degree. And now you took up other responsibilities, other things that are nice, but you're not going to get your degree. And you have to go fight management in court for 2-3 years while all your colleagues are gone. 2, 3, 4 years ahead of you before you're able to get any victory in court. So if those threats are real, then they just kind of...
Well, it comes with leadership. I mean, leadership, sometimes you have to take some difficult decisions, right? And that's where, what do you call it? Is it right to use the term comportment? Being able to behave even under difficult conditions. We've had in the past individuals who were able to stand to authorities in the remit of the law. So for us, we are doing it in the remit of the law and the school statute. It is not wrong.
Yeah. But if
you get it,
would hold a certificate today,
why would they hold a certificate? Why would they hold it? Why would they hold a certificate in the first place?
Management can do whatever they want to try and frustrate you.
No, that depends on who is in the picture. That is what I was talking about, somebody standing on the grounds. For some of us, you cannot intimidate us. I have been, this particular thing is very relatable.
Let's say you went to do something and there was some looter in the hall, or in some places, this and the Muslim management say, no, you're not allowed to do a demonstration around this time. And so because of that, I've taken to different committees.
There are procedures.
Yes, they're taking you, they put people on the DC. It's okay. Suspended you for 1 year. You can go and challenge it. But by the time you challenge it and come back, your mates are gone.
I have seen many student leaders who have been called to face the disciplinary committee, some being threatened, like I mentioned earlier, about their certificates not being given to them and all of that. Now they have graduated and they are pursuing higher academics. Yeah. It depends on who is in the picture. Like I mentioned from the very beginning, if you are doing within the remits of the law, then it means that you're on the right path.
So even in national politics, do we not see people who play by the book? And so, because you see, that's the thing with the system. Someone, the ones in charge of the system can
will still be able to twist it in a certain way
to frustrate you, to lock you up, to do that.
That's where some people begin to abstain from the whole thing.
Because ultimately, they're even looking at it from, if I'm a student leader and I fell in trouble defending student interest, can I get students getting up and massing up to say support me? You don't get
at some point. Let me give you an example. Let me give you this recent Commonwealth Hub Buhaha that came up. There were protests on campus where some students were even arrested by the police and sent to the police cell.
Yeah, some of them spent like 2 days.
There were some students, while their colleagues were at the police cells, were still rooting for them on campus. Yeah. And trust me, these students, most of them are back. Yeah. If not for all of them, they are back.
So if it took you 1 year, that is 1 year of your academic
endeavor.
You see, the frustrations and all of these things. Yes, for me, it's worth it. If you are pursuing the course in the right direction and you are fighting for the interests of the majority and you are being sabotaged or you are being criticized or you are being, held in a very wrongful way, so far as what you are doing is good, then you must stand by them.
Yeah, vindication.
One day you would grow and come back to realize that you fought a good fight. And you see, it is only, a bit challenging when you don't have the support of even the very people you are fighting for. Some may tend to even go stand beside management and rather fight against
the same people you are fighting for.
So that's where the Abemubo sort of thing comes in.
Well, so as we prepare to wind down, I mean, this has been a conversation about campus politics and whether or not they mirror national politics in a good or bad way. It's an important conversation because there's so many people who feel like student leadership is dying now because of the infiltration of partisan politics and so many other interests. And so if you go to campuses, SRCs, particularly universities, there are few senior high schools in Ashanti region like this. They have a senior high school SRC at SHS level. That is very vibrant in Accra. But because of certain interests that is taking over these ideas, it's becoming very difficult to represent the students' interests and all of that. I guess the question for me really, as we begin to go down is what happens now and how do we get student leadership back to when it was? Because those days when Nooks was powerful. Now Nook says anything, nobody bothers. Nobody wants to even listen to Nook because everybody knows who they are beholden to, right? So those days in the 90s, in the 80s, at the height of the revolution where student leadership backed and people listened. Now students said anything about Galamsey going on. The student leadership is nowhere to be found. You can't find Nooks in it. But if there's Galamsey, there's water problem, there's poison in the...
If it were back then, more action from Nooks and all of that, mobilizations and all.
Exactly. Why are we not feeling that then? How do we get to the point where student leadership really get back in?
I think, and I'm not against the political parties, but the point is, the parties have been able to polarize the system. That is true to the matter, right? If SRC, now, let's say University of Ghana SRC, is to try to get people on board to go on a demonstration for fight against Galamsey. You get people who say, who is the SRC president again? Which political party is he? Oh, he's doing it for his party. Or let's say the president is an MPP person. He's doing it for his party. It will go against, my party. So I won't join. You see? And so because of that polarization, it has eaten deep down to the point where even before any student takes action to support a student leader, they will consider their political affiliation before. So that is where the problem is, my brother.
So are you saying we can get out of the woods?
We can get out of the woods when we are able to get these political parties to know the effect of student leadership on the national politics. We've heard in several instances where on the floor of parliament, the speaker will lament or call out leaders to say that they need to be leaders, they should reduce their politics and all of that. If truly they want to reduce that at the national level, the political parties should also now sit down and look like, okay, look, the polarization is okay. Let us find models where, although these people will be affiliated to us, will imbibe in them some qualities which will make them stand out wherever they are, no matter which political party they belong to, right? So let's say if NPP is having an academy on campus, let's say through TESCON and TAIN, as part of their training, they should let them know that, look, you're a party member, all right, but you are a student leader first, right? So in championing interest or in rolling out policies, ensure that first you are pursuing the interest of the party, but in the interest of the, I beg your pardon, in the interest of the student. But times where after school, your party, you want to get into the national, politics, and then your party needs you, then you get in there. But whilst on campus, we are training you, all right, but you need to pursue the interest of the student.
And that is exactly what he has said. Like you mentioned, you are a student first before anything else. So it means that which people have put you there, you have the mandate to serve. And you see, we have not come to the point where leaders are even, student leaders to some extent are being assessed after their term of office. Earlier, you mentioned the fact that they make a lot of promises to the students and then they tend to sway from the very reasons where they go. It's all as a result of these sort of influence. But then we can still have genuine student leaders who are poised to champion the cause of students when they understand what they are doing. Some, they just come into office because they think the title as a leader is what is important. But if the person understands the cause of service and they need to serve and serve properly, I think it would deter them from pursuing the interests of, political parties and all of that. Because it is very, practically insane, excuse me to say, that we cannot even hear of Nooks in terms of activism again. You cannot hear of USAG. It is very, very... If we go back to the days of the Honorable Okudzeto Blackwood, you could see they championed the cause of... And it made student activism and leadership very appealing as compared to, the days of our time.
Right. You see, because those times, the students were interested. They were interested in being a part of student leadership and being a part of, student activism on campus. But now, students are not interested anymore. You see, so we should also look at how to get students to be interested. Look, if students are made to be interested in activities of the SRC, we wouldn't even need a political party to come and sponsor someone to win an election. Notice a world where students are so much interested in student, leadership to the point where a candidate is running for an election and the students gather resources, contributions to support the candidate. If the person comes, definitely they're going to serve the interest of the student.
Because ultimately, even when you raise the money,
right,
you are not beholden to anybody.
Exactly.
We are not beholden to anybody. So I think that is where we can also look at it from that angle. We should get more students to be interested in student, leadership, to the point where we can be like, political parties, you've done your bit. It's okay. Hold on for us. We as students are taking student leadership up. We are sponsoring people to win elections, not based on money.
And you know one thing, the whole sort of political influence on campus politics and all of that become more intense, getting to the elections and all of that.
Yeah.
So if it's getting to the like a year or two to the elections, then you see the presence
general elections in
political
Ghana,
leaders coming in and out, trying to
become so much interested in who becomes SRC president and all.
So we need to rebrand and redefine leadership when it comes to the student level, because for me it is a very good grounds to nurture future political leaders. If a leader is getting trained, so let's say you are a first-time member of parliament and you get to parliament and you don't necessarily have any form of experience in terms of leadership in the past, then what leader are you becoming? Is it now that you are going to learn in parliament? But let's say you have engaged in some general assembly discussions at the student level and you know how to quote the constitutions, how to read articles and all of that, your work becomes very easy and you are able to understand what you are doing right from the very beginning. So for me, student politics is very good grounds to train political leaders, but then we need to redefine it to make it appealing, to even make the ordinary student who is not a leader or has never been a leader before understand that coming out to even vote or participate in anything leadership on campus is an ideal thing to do.
I think talking about redefining, there's a point where all stakeholders need to get on board, because at the end of the day, actions of political actors at the current level affect everyone.
Yes.
Where do these political actors come from?
Most
of them are from these student leadership, back on universities and all of that. So if we are able to train them in a way where leadership qualities are instilled in them, notice how they will bring that to the national level, right? And we'll be able to implement some policies and follow through to ensure that, things are better. Because trust me, student leadership is really a good platform. It's really, really a good platform.
Definitely.
There are so many qualities, I've been able to imbibe in myself, or I've learned so many ways in doing things from student politics that I even use at the workplace, how to deal with people, how to work under pressure, and all of these things. How, student leadership on University of Ghana campuses,
can be
agenda scheming and all of that, all of those things shape your thought, right? So when you get to a point where you need to utilize those qualities you've imbibed in yourself, it becomes so, glaringly clear that this person has gone through student leadership. So in concluding, I will say that we need to get more stakeholders on board to ensure that we redefine student leadership, looking at how we elect student leaders, reducing the amount of money. Campuses can even come up with policies to cap how much students can spend on campaigns.
Just not to cut you short, I think one of the very mechanisms that they used was to, for instance, University of Ghana to remove the cost of filing for nominations.
For nominations.
Yes, I mean, at first, before you could contest for SRC president, the filing alone was about 1,000 Ghana cedis.
1,000
so
Ghana cedis.
A student who is being catered for by the parent is to pay 1,000 cedis to be able to file for nominations. And I think that when they removed that filing fee from the whole electioneering process, it allowed room for even the marginalized or the vulnerable, the one who does not have to be able to
so imagine
get access
a
to
world
leadership.
where they will cut campaign
Exactly.
funds.
So it is possible. It is possible we can
possible.
mitigate some of these. Yes.
Very interesting. And I mean, it's a big conversation that I believe one is taken with all the seriousness. I mean, student politics can define to become something very, very much more important than what we have now, like we did in the past. Because of course, campus politics, universities, senior high schools, these are all places where you can nurture the next generation of leaders. And so, fascinating. Akom, thank you very much. Henry, thank you very much. This has been a very brilliant conversation. And this has been Youth Unplugged podcast, CDD, and it's also with support from the DRC. This is under CDD's Ghana Democracy Resilience Project. It's a fascinating conversation, and I know we are going to come back to some of this because it is really where we can get the next level of leaders from if you really look at it. My name is Kiko Asante. We'll see you again same time, another time.